It's time, Dina Doll. It's time for the midweek edition of Legal AF. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about, break down, and analyze at the intersection of law and politics. So much, it overflows. That's why we set up Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Can't capture it all, but we're going to do it a little bit geographically, then by morals and values, and tie it all together. We're going to start in New York, where we've got Donald Trump filing yet another motion, making the world know that he won the election, and that should be the reason that his conviction, not the indictment, not the prosecution, his conviction of 36 felony counts or so in New York should be vacated. Forget about sentencing, because he won 3 Tuesdays ago. But now he's filed an 80-page brief on it, which we expected. It was not something we didn't expect, on December 2nd. And we'll talk about the arguments that were raised there by the lawyers representing Donald Trump, who are now all going to be in the Department of Justice. And right on cue, we've got the Georgia lawyers for Donald Trump doing almost the exact same thing, but they did it in 6 pages, with a new filing just today in Georgia to try to get the Georgia indictment of Donald Trump kicked on the grounds that he is the incoming president of the United States. We'll talk about it, and that's addressed to the appellate court in Georgia, because that case is up on appeal through Fani Willis. Speaking of Fani Willis, we'll stay in Georgia. We'll talk about Fani Willis. I don't know what's going on there. There was a screwy order of default against Fani Willis and her office for failing to produce documents which I don't think exist. And I don't know why her office would have missed multiple deadlines and get a default judgment entered against them. So we'll talk about that. That was brought by Tom Fitton's Judicial Watch, that non-lawyer wannabe who runs this thing for Donald Trump out there. He filed a public records request to try to get all the communications between Fani Willis, the Jan 6 committee, and or Jack Smith's prosecutors. She said none. He wanted that, he couldn't take no for an answer, so he filed the case, and then it went into this weird world that we'll explain. And Ken Chesebro just woke up. He is one of the architects of the fake elector scheme, who pled guilty in Georgia, along with 3 other lawyers and a few other people. And now he's having buyer's remorse. He's having convicted felon remorse. And he's like, well, wait a minute. If all these cases are going away because the main guy has supremacy or immunity or whatever it is, I want to take back my plea. And he's also been indicted in other places and cooperating with other prosecutors around, lost his bar license, we're about to lose his bar license. So we'll talk about Ken Chesebro. Then what I like to call now cabinet roulette is going on. It's like Russian roulette, but worse. And pick after pick after pick for Donald Trump, because they haven't been vetted, because he refused to let the FBI do their job, are just going down in flames one after another. First Gates, now Hegseth. And then a little chess game going on, got a lot of Florida parts to Donald Trump's cabinet. And if the media is right and the reporting is right, and it sort of makes sense, then it could be Ron DeSantis getting back into the MAGA tent, coming in as defense secretary, but first appointing a Trump to be a Florida senator from Florida after Marco Rubio takes the Secretary of State. We would have effectively 2 of the 4 major cabinet positions occupied by Florida politicians, and then maybe Lara Trump as a senator. Is that what's going on? And is Hegseth just going to be the appropriate sacrificial lamb because of his terrible alleged bad conduct, sexual misconduct, alleged financial misconduct, and everything else? We'll talk about it. Then I want to touch briefly, everybody knows about it already. Hunter Biden got a pardon. Pardon me. And now the sentencing judge in California is all hot and bothered by it. He's a Trump appointee, no less. And so there's some new reporting there about that judge. And then I just want to touch on a very important issue about a United States Supreme Court oral argument today in a case that we've been tracking on Unprecedented, a show that Dina Doll and I do on exclusively on the Legal AF YouTube channel, called Skirmetti out of Tennessee, but has impact, nationwide impact, about the rights of transgender people and transgender adolescents to obtain medical care that they need in order to align who they believe they are, who they identify with as in terms of gender, with their bodies, in terms of gender affirming procedures and medical care like puberty blockers. And we've got an oral argument today led by the first transgender person to ever argue at the United States Supreme Court. And frankly, it did not go well for the transgender and free-thinking community led by the MAGA right wing. We'll break all that down. We got Dina Doll sitting in for Karen Friedman-Agnifilo, who is great. She's just temporarily not available this week. And so Dina Doll is always our favorite go-to person there. Sort of like, I'm going to show my age. Every time Johnny Carson couldn't make the Tonight Show, he'd bring in like Joan Rivers. Joan Rivers was like the permanent guest host. You're like Joan Rivers, but better.
I can't tell if that's a compliment.
It is. I love Joan Rivers.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
You are. So let's, why don't you, we'll do it in that order. Did you get a chance to kind of make your way through the 80 pages in New York?
Yeah. So, okay, we're going to start first with his motion to dismiss.
Yeah, let's do that. Why don't you lead on the motion? I'll fill in as a New York lawyer, though, but you lead off on the New York filing that we expected. Judge Merchan had said, you want to bring a motion on equity and justice because he got elected president grounds, which I'll just leave it at this. Because we haven't gotten the Manhattan DA's response yet to this Alvin Bragg, but it's going to be a version of what they told the judge, which is time solves all these problems, Judge. The immunity that he claims for being a president-elect into being president and the interference or impeding with the president's powers is a temporary immunity. It resolves itself. It's like a temporary virus over the weekend. It eventually goes away. And in 4 years, it'll go away. And he'll have no immunity, no supremacy clause, no separation of power. So he shouldn't get the benefit of a permanent dismissal or vacating of his convictions by a jury for the temporary condition of 4 years. It'll seem interminable. It'll seem like it's gone on forever, but it is 4 years. And that's their solution. And we'll see that in their papers. But why don't you walk everybody through what the Trump lawyers, Blanche and Beauvais, are arguing to Judge Merchan?
Yeah, so basically it's kind of what you said. They're really relying on this Department of Justice memo that said no sitting president can be criminally prosecuted, as well as the supremacy clause, the fact that he's a federal officer, the state can't prosecute him. And then he throws in the Hunter Biden pardon because that just had happened. So conveniently for him, he adds it in and says, just like the president says that his son was unfairly prosecuted, you should use that theory to dismiss my case. And he's really using kind of those three arguments. The problem for him is that all of those, particularly the first two arguments, we're in interpretation here. This has never actually happened before, right? The Department of Justice memo could apply, but we've never had it where a jury has issued a verdict prior to the fact that a president was even elected. So I actually think that DA Alvin Bragg's willingness to defer everything 4 years is quite an expansive interpretation of that DOJ memo. I think he could say at this point, there's not that much time or effort that Trump will need for purely sentencing or purely appellate arguments regarding immunity. It's not that much of a distraction. And could have kept, asked the Justice Merchan to keep going straight ahead. But it sounds like, based like what you said, they told the judge, they're not going to do that. So if they're going to ask the judge to just defer it, that seems to me that they're giving Justice Merchan like a legal out. That seems very reasonable. And the reason why the Department of Justice memo or the supremacy clause language doesn't really justify a dismissal versus the Jack Smith situation is because, as everyone knows, we've already gone through the trial. We already have a jury verdict. It's not as if they're just starting the indictment. So that's why it's a stretch for Trump to use those really novel. We're in a novel area of the law. Like, you're going to hear a lot of different lawyers give different opinions, like even here on this channel, right? Like, I really maybe am trying to push the limits of what Justice Merchan can do. I think he should go ahead and complete the sentencing now and complete his immunity decision now and not even delay it. But it's because we've never had this happen before, right? But those are his three things. And in terms of his argument regarding the pardoning, that, President Biden mentions that his son was unfairly prosecuted. That's an opinion, right, that the president had. It wasn't actually found legally. Trump's situation, no judge found that to be legally unfairly prosecuted. So I don't think that that's going to actually carry any legal weight for Justice Merchan. He doesn't have to take the opinion of a president on a completely separate case into consideration when he decides whether or not to dismiss this case. If a judge had decided that Hunter Biden had been unfairly prosecuted, and based on facts that maybe could be extrapolated toward Trump's case, maybe, but that was really included in the filing for purely political PR purposes, and not for any legal basis that Justice Merchan, I think, will be swayed by.
Yeah, I thought that the 80 pages was just stitched together of warmed over leftovers, week-old leftovers in the fridge, sort of stitched together. All of these arguments, they can try to make them on appeal, but none of them make the argument appropriate under the law to vacate, which is what they're asking for. They keep saying dismiss. It's not dismiss. The jury has spoken. You can move for vacatur or vacating of the conviction, which is what they're asking to do. But on what grounds? Well, it's the best of the worst of their arguments. Well, you've got a daughter, Judge. Okay, that works for Democrats. Yeah. Okay, and you're biased. All right, Michael Cohen. When we left out the big thing.
Oh, right,
Salty. I'm in there. I made Russian TV and a footnote in their filing, in the last 2 weeks. Michael Cohen is biased and lied under oath. Go watch all his podcasts, including Meidas Touch one involving Michael Popok and Michael Cohen and other ones. Cite. So Michael Cohen, we've heard this before. The jury evaluated Michael Cohen's 3 days of testimony. They got to cross-examine Michael Cohen's 3 days of it. They were not able to prove to the jury, obviously, that Michael Cohen was not telling the truth at that particular time, and to discredit him. They had every opportunity in an adversarial process to do that, and they were not able to do it. So they don't get to do it now, posting about some Meidas Touch and Legal AF podcasts. That's not going to do it. And then they're complaining about, well, the jury was unfair. Well, you picked the jury. We were upset at Meidas Touch and Legal AF. You didn't ask the jury if they got their news from Meidas Touch and Legal AF. We're like, why are we on the questionnaire? We're like, what? MSNBC and CNN, who are they?
Right.
It's like, and so now, of course, they mention us, right? They make us part of the story. That's going to be our new slogan: Meidas Touch and Legal AF. When there's no story to tell, we are the news. We make the news, right? And so you had that. So Michael Cohen, liar. I've heard this before. Oh, you went after poor Alan Weisselberg, the chief financial officer, the guy that lied under oath and went to jail twice because of it. That guy. Yeah. So that's not going to work with this judge or even with the appellate court. The daughter works for Democratic causes. What's the link between that and the judge being biased? None. And then they got that stretch of an argument about, well, the DOJ guidelines and the Office of Legal Counsel, and when you're a president or you're going to be a president, prosecution should stop. Prosecution has stopped. We're done with the prosecution. We're up to the sentencing. Yeah. Right. And I agree with you. What's left is not much. Yeah. They could sentence and push it off the actual start of the sentence 4 years.
Exactly.
As opposed to push everything off 4 years and have him be 82 years old when he comes out and then sentence him when he's got absolutely no protections. I don't see Merchan. He's seen all these arguments before. They'll have to be raised on appeal. But for now, I think he's going to side. We'll see the paper. Either you and I or somebody else will do it next week. We'll see the paper from Alvin Bragg's office, but they're going to be like, okay, none of this applies to post-conviction, pre-sentencing events. We've never had a president who was convicted about his conduct before he was president the first time get elected a second time. We've never had that before, as you said. It's unprecedented. Yeah. So, but time heals all wounds and fixes this problem, and I think that's exactly where Rashawn's going to go. Just to remind everybody, or for those who don't follow it as closely as we do, one more brief comes in a week from Alvin Bragg. The judge has already said, I don't want reply briefs. I don't want back and forth. You do a brief, you do a brief, I'll make the decision. So we're going to get a decision pretty quickly before Christmas about this. Finally. And then whoever's the loser is going to take the appeal. Yeah. First level appeal, first department here in Manhattan. And then whoever loses that up to the Court of Appeals in New York, and whoever loses that's going to try to take it over to the feds. There's still an argument that he has an issue up on appeal about whether he should have been able to remove this case to federal court, which is long dead as far as I'm concerned. But that's sort of still out there, and that's that. So we were not surprised then when we got almost a very similar argument. I give him credit for doing it in 6 pages in Georgia. So why don't I kick off Georgia on that, okay, and then I'll turn it back to you for comment. So we get a notice of jurisdictional issue, raising the issue, and what the jurisdictional issue is. A court, and they're right about this, is an appellate court especially, is always making sure that they have at any given time jurisdiction, fundamental jurisdiction over a case. If they lose, and you can lose jurisdiction because various things happen. Somebody moves and you lose diversity jurisdiction, or they move into the state, or there's a change in circumstances, or something has occurred that make the matter moot and there's no more jurisdiction. And here the argument is the changed circumstances is that Donald Trump won. He's now the president-elect, and he's doing a transition, sort of. And therefore, he can't be bothered or impeded or impaired with the powers of the president-elect or the powers of the president to deal with what's going on in Georgia. And we know Georgia's been stuck in the mud for the last it's almost a year, because of conflicts of interest allegations against Fani Willis, and then it went up on appeal and all this other stuff. So you have all of that going on. So they're arguing that you've lost the appellate court that's been trying to decide whether Fani Willis was properly allowed to stay in the case or not, because she had a boyfriend for a minute. They used to work for her on the case. So they're arguing that jurisdiction has been lost by the appellate court, right? And the trial court, because of the president, Trump becoming the new president again. And that's their major argument. They may find some support for that by this appellate court, the Court of Appeals, which is the first level appellate court in Georgia. Then you go to the Georgia Supreme Court, because they've been sitting on this case for a long time. They unilaterally canceled a hearing, an oral argument they were going to have. I think it was even this week. It was supposed to be December 5th. They just said, no, till further notice, we're not even doing the oral argument. So I could see them grabbing this and going, oh, good, thank you. Appeal dismissed. Not even dealing. Let them deal with it at the Georgia Supreme Court level, which leans totally right. What did you make of this 6 pages?
Yeah, it was interesting because, again, they brought in the Department of Justice memo, again, the supremacy, which there's, Lawrence Tribe, as constitutional scholar, really thinks that neither of those technically, or at least the DOJ memo doesn't really apply because we've never been in this situation before. But the argument they didn't include, which I almost thought would have been the better argument for them, is his rights as a defendant. Like, practically, a RICO charge against him is going to be a very long trial, months and months and months. I don't think he could properly assist his case and be in that courtroom and be president at the same time. Could you imagine the number of times they would have to pause the trial because there was some conflict that erupted in the world? So I think they're going to dismiss that case. One, based on the fact that maybe he can't properly execute his duties as president, even though this is weird that they're not starting it while he's president, but after he's become president, but also just as a criminal defendant. I don't see how he could, have his constitutional rights and also be president at the same time. So I think we knew when he was elected that the Georgia case against him was going away. And that's why they only did 6 pages. I don't think this is a difficult legal argument for him to make.
Yeah, just managing expectations. We don't want that to happen. We like it to continue, and we like it, to pick up. Well, certainly it doesn't impact directly the 13 other co-defendants that have all been sued, just because he got immunity, unique superpower because he won the presidency again, doesn't mean that necessarily helps everybody else. In fact, when we come back from our commercial break, we'll pick up with Ken Chesborough, which is one of the architects of the fake elector scheme, along with Peter Navarro. Peter Navarro, as Ron Filipkowski said on Meidas Touch, usually you go from the Trump White House to prison, not from prison back to the White House. And now Peter Navarro is back. I guess he'll give him a pardon at some point. He's going to be a trade representative for Donald Trump. But Peter Navarro, Ken Chesborough, and the rest, and John Eastman all got together and came up with this fake elector scheme to come up with these phony certificates and fake evidence. And he now is thinking better of the fact that he pled guilty. And so you got that, and then you got some new weird default judgment against Fani Willis, of all things, that we're going to talk about. And then we'll make our way down to the cabinet. What is going on with the Hegseth's dead? He is that stick a fork in it. He is done. How soon can he be replaced? Is it going to be DeSantis? And then why is it going to be DeSantis? And what value is it to both DeSantis and to Donald Trump if that is the pick? We'll talk about that and the other cabinet members and their final decision. I guess they finally said, hey, we're not doing great on this vetting thing, the transition team. We better bring the FBI in. I thought the FBI was the enemy. I thought the FBI needed to be gutted by Kash Patel. Now it's like, help us, please. We need the FBI to do background checks because they just signed finally the transition agreement we've been waiting on for 4 weeks for them to sign. We'll talk about that. And then we got to touch on the kind of a not pleasant occurrence today at the United States Supreme Court in the Skermeti oral argument about people who are transgender, other Americans who are transgender, and their rights moving forward. Reading the tea leaves, it does not look good. We'll touch on that. But we've got sponsors. That's a good thing. I know, the sponsors thing. Yeah. There's plenty. Let me just tell you, there's plenty of YouTube channels that don't have any sponsors. They don't have any viewers either. But then you can go there. It's completely free. In fact, there is ways. Let me just tell people, there are ways to support the show where you get ad-free. Get ad-free of this. There's a couple of ways. We have it on Patreon for Legal AF, the Legal AF Patreon, where you can go and subscribe. I think it's like $5 or $10 a month, and they will give you a free version of this, in other words, ad-free. Meidas Plus on Substack has a version of it as well, so you can get it there. So for those people that are interested, you can go there. And there's other ways to support the show. We have a new Legal AF YouTube channel. Dina Doll is over with me on it as well. It's at Legal AF MTN from Meidas Touch Network. We're doing it in collaboration. We got a goal, and you guys are helping us get there. 500,000 by Jan 1. We're already at 350,000 and growing after just 2 months. And we have 5 or 6 videos a day, original content. Dina Doll is there doing hot takes. She does Unprecedented with me about the United States Supreme Court. We'll cover the Skermeti decision and oral argument in detail over there. We got other contributors like Shan Wu and Karen Freeman-Knifilo and Court Accountability Action. Just a really great place if you're looking to sit at that intersection of law and politics on a regular basis. And then we've got our sponsors, and now we've got a word from them right now. Let me tell you about a company that's coming up swinging on behalf of American family farms and your family's food security. Moink. The business is simple. Moink's meat comes from animals raised outdoors where a pig is free to be a pig, born, raised, and harvested right here in the United States of America. And that's saying something because in general, other than Moink's, 99% of chicken, 95% of pork, and 78% of cattle are raised in feedlot or confinement buildings. Their farmers are given an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, and they deliver meat straight to your doorstep at prices you can actually afford. And Moink farmers are in a class by themselves. 2% of Americans are farmers, yet 100% of us eat. Support American family farms and join the Moink movement today at moinkbox.com/legalaf right now and get free wings for life. They're the best wings you'll ever taste, and they're for free, but for a limited time. Spelled M-O-I-N-K, box.com/legalaf. That's moinkbox.com/legalaf.
Lumi is a whole body deodorant that is safe to use anywhere on your body. Your armpits, under your boobs, your thighs, your belly buttons, your butt, other areas down below, and your feet. It's created by an OBGYN who saw firsthand how normal body odor was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. It is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Lumi deodorant product options are a solid stick deodorant, if you like that, sweat control deodorant, spray deodorant. All products are baking soda free and paraben free. They're pH balanced for safe use below the belt. Choose from a variety of fresh, bright scents like clean tangerine, lavender, sage, or toasted coconut. Lumi's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream, tube, deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice like a mini body wash, deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine the 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off their starter pack. Use code LEGALAF for 15% off your first purchase at lumideodorant.com. That's code LEGALAF at LUMEDEODORANT.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Lumi.
Okay, we're back. And before we broke, I said that we're going to stay in Georgia for one more minute. You want to talk us through Ken Chesebro, and I'll talk us through Fani Willis?
Yeah, so this was interesting. So if you remember, Chesebro was one of the people who requested a speedy trial back about a little bit more than a year ago. I think it was September, October of 2023. And promptly, he ended up pleading guilty to filing false documents in federal court with the rest of his counts against him. I think there were about 6 or 7 counts altogether, with the rest of them being dismissed. And part of his deal was for him to testify against the other defendants. I think he also got probation, community service, and a fine. So now the interesting thing is what happened was Judge McAfee months ago, I almost want to say it's like 6 months ago at this point, dismissed a few of the charges that came out of that grand jury relating to things with federal court, like perjury with federal court, filing the documents with federal court, saying that charges related to, let's say, fraud on the federal court need to be adjudicated in the federal court, not the state court. And so he dismissed 3 charges related to them. One of them was, and happened to be, the charge that Chesebro pled guilty to. So his filing is basically, since the judge has said that this is not a valid charge, I have a post-conviction right to vacate basically my guilty plea. That's kind of where we're at with him. It does seem like it took a while to make this motion because Judge McAfee dismissed those quite a long time ago. But that's his attempt right now, is to basically unwind the guilty plea.
You have an interesting way of pronouncing the judge's name.
McAfee?
It's McAfee.
Oh my gosh, I mispronounce things all the time. I think I need a disclosure.
All right, I do it too. And then Ben always, Ben or I will correct each other. I just couldn't do it in the chat, because I couldn't figure out how to make it pronounced
thank
properly.
you. Yeah.
McAfee. So I don't know what took Chesebro, which I also mispronounce regularly. Cheesebro, I originally called him.
That's a tough one too.
I don't think it's going to work. I think if the case goes away, the case goes away. I don't think you get out from under your plea deal because later on the case went away for somebody like the president, or then now president of the United States. So I think he's screwed. I don't. As we said internally, you should have just waited. I don't know why you took the plea deal.
Right.
This thing kind of got into the mud relatively quickly, but he made the plea deal before the Fani Willis motion to disqualify was against her, before McAfee's evidentiary hearing that, took her down a peg, before all these issues came up. And, he just, I don't know, got bad lawyer advice or whatever, but that's him. So, but, again, we're going to talk about pardons for a minute coming up. Donald Trump's going to pardon 2,000 people. It's going to be like, and he's not going to do a memo like Joe Biden did. It's just going to be 2 lines from the Constitution, and then see attached Exhibit A, Schedule A, or a spreadsheet. It's just going to be 2,000 names. It's going to be like all the Jan 6 defendants, all the MAGA House, all the MAGA Senate, everybody that was in the election or campaign with him, everybody that was in the White House with him. It's going to be like 2,000 people. Now, it doesn't really help Peter Navarro, people that are coming into the cabinet, people that are going out of the cabinet. Right now, there's some law clerk for the transition team that's like typing up this list. It's going to be one of the first things he signs. I know the Jan 6 insurrectionists are getting all upset because he doesn't talk about it anymore. But trust me, he is going to be pardoning everybody. And that's why, the Democrats, when they start complaining, oh, why did he do that? Why did Biden pardon his son? Now he's going to open the floodgates of all the pardons and we won't be able to say anything. Like, what are you even effing talking about? Are you guys high? Is that the problem? I mean,
I'm so fired up about this.
If Joe Biden didn't pardon his son, I would think he was insane.
Me too. Right. I don't understand because I don't understand why the argument isn't that after he pardoned Jared Kushner's father, but Trump opened up the floodgates to pardoning family members. Like, I don't understand why we so badly lose on the messaging. Like, it has nothing to do. It's this idea that somehow Biden is doing something first, which isn't the case whatsoever.
Jeffrey Toobin, who writes for the New Yorker magazine, who got fired from the New Yorker because he masturbated during a Zoom call during COVID, had the balls to say out loud in his writing that Joe Biden's entire 50-year history of public service, body of work, has been sullied because he pardoned his son. Are you like awake, man? I mean, are you watching Donald Trump weaponize before our very eyes in broad daylight the Department of Justice and the FBI and says he's going after the Biden crime family? I mean, you weren't there, Toobin, when Trump met with Biden and said, oh, I can really commiserate about what happened with the Department of Justice and Hunter Biden, and then went out and attacked Hunter Biden and everybody else. He had to put his son in a safe space. The sentencing was coming up in Delaware and in California in about a week. And the judge in California I'm telling you, I'm sorry, but he is bald-faced crazy. Yeah. I mean, he's been fired up about Hunter Biden for no reason other than he's a Trumper from day one. And he was about to throw the book at him. Did you see what the judge wrote? And he wrote, he didn't have to write anything.
Yeah.
Hunter Biden filed, I'll turn it to you now. Hunter Biden filed an appropriate notice of pardon. I got pardoned. No sentence, game over. Thank you for playing. We're out. All right. That's, with the memo and the link to the pardon, the whole thing. No, that wasn't good enough for the federal judge. He decided he was going to write his own response and retort and excoriate Joe Biden for pardoning his son. You want to take it from there? Yeah.
I mean, first of all, that judge was also against him. Hunter Biden lost pretty much every pretrial motion. What put him in this situation of having to take a guilty plea. So that judge was ruling against him all the time. He was clearly itching to sentence Joe Biden's son. And he was so upset by it. And the fact that he points to the statement and says it's not justified, guess what? You don't deserve an explanation. Pardons are exclusive purview of the president or the governor. And I actually think Biden gave us more of an explanation than we deserve. And like you said, Trump certainly isn't going to in the future. And he hasn't in the past. He pardoned all of his cronies and, Charles Kushner, and did not give us an explanation. So that judge trying to parse through the statement and act like somehow it wasn't enough for him is kind of a joke. Sorry, but the president has more power than you. And he was really partisan in how he handled the case from the beginning. I think he was going to throw the book at Hunter Biden. And so I think Joe Biden pardoning him now to avoid that, putting everybody through that sentencing was the right thing. But he did do it during a slow news time, which we were talking about, which maybe gave people too much time to talk. But I would have been so upset if he hadn't pardoned his son. I did a video on Meidas. This was a big cause for me because I really felt like at the end of the day, if he didn't pardon, Hunter Biden would have been the only one behind jail at the end of this whole thing. Trump is going off scot-free. He's pardoning the January 6 defendants. If Hunter had literally been in jail, I think I would have lost my mind. So I'm glad it happened.
I agree, and more, not less pardons, more pardons. I want Joe Biden to pardon Michael Cohen. I want Joe Biden to pardon all the prosecutors who are in a case where on the other side of the V was Donald Trump's name. I want him to pardon Jack Smith. Not because he did anything wrong, just because I want him to get out of jail card in all their back pockets. Merrick Garland, it's easy. Just go through social media posts for Donald Trump and everybody he or Kash Patel or Pam Bondi or Matt Gaetz or anybody else has attacked publicly in the last 2 years, put their name on a list and give them protection. Make judges do. Judge Merchan, Judge Chutkan, Judge Engoron, attorney generals. Let's do them as well. I'm tired of the Democrats. And I'm a Democrat. I'm tired of the Democrats playing by the Marquis de Queensberry rules. Oh, that's not how we should do. F that. It's time to have sharp elbows and use everything at our disposal and every superpower that Joe Biden still has to protect our constitutional republic. Because the Republicans would do it to us, and they're doing it to us.
And you know what? I think that when we don't do it, after he explicitly tells us he's planning on going after them, it's as if we're not taking him seriously. And if our federal elected people like Biden aren't willing to take Trump seriously, then voters don't take him seriously, right? So we can't say Trump is this huge threat, but then take no action to protect us from this threat. I know it's like a step beyond what Biden will probably be used to. But when you have the incoming administrations over and over and over being really specific about the names, they even talked about one of the charges they're planning on doing for Letitia James, like some sort of conspiracy to take away rights. When they're being nuts, we have to take them seriously. We have to take them at their word and go ahead and take an action to prevent that. Otherwise, we are dismissing what Trump says, just like the Republicans do. They like to say, oh, that's just talk. That's not what he really means. Well, he does mean it, and we need to start taking it seriously. And I think blatant pardons on the way out are a way to do it.
I agree. Strategic use of pardons have to be done. You can't look the devil in the eye and come away the same person. I used it on a hot take of mine. I used an old Seinfeld joke from one of his routines about you can't ignore the obvious that's in front of you. He used to say, look, I understand the chopstick, but now the Chinese have seen the fork. Okay? You got to make adjustments. You know, a crazy, wild-eyed madman is about to take the reins of power and control and completely decimate the independence of the Department of Justice and the FBI and make an imperial presidency that levitates over the other two branches. So what are you going to do? Just act like, no, I think at the end of the day, he'll be fair. Really?
Right.
Insanity. And this is what, it's the Jeffrey Toobins of the world, the sane washers of the world that helped us lose the election. There's many reasons we lost the election. I just don't think it's irreparable. I think we can fix it. I don't see it, just to make clear, as a giant lurch to the red, a giant lurch to MAGA. Everybody wants to wear their MAGA hat. This was about the economy, and then it was about, some social issues and religious issues and LGBTQ issues, but really the economy. If people felt better about the economy and about the incoming administration's address, and then it was about process. Let's be frank. Even Democrats don't like getting a candidate shoved down their throat.
It was a weird situation.
It was weird. If Joe Biden had done what he told us he was going to do, which is be a caretaker president for one term, start a process a year early and have an open primary. And if Kamala Harris won, great. She'd be battle hardened after a primary process. But if she wasn't the winner, then the best person would have won that primary. And then we would have had a real debate for ideas against Donald Trump instead of what happened, which is even Democrats were like, yeah, I don't like this process. Why is she the candidate? Other than the fact that she's vice president. But anyway, we could debate all night long. But the good news is I think we can fix it in 2 years and in 4 years. and get back the voters that are naturally ours. But we'll continue to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about, let's just outline the rest. We got to talk about the cabinet falling apart in shambles. Wow. And then they went from 3 weeks ago, Tulsi Gabbard tells the media, oh, we're not going to let FBI do investigations. We don't want a mole knowing what we're doing. This is the woman that's going to be the National Intelligence Director.
Okay.
We don't want a mole knowing what we're doing. We're going to do our own background checks. Yeah. How'd that go? Not great. Not great. And Susie Wiles must be pulling out whatever's left of her hair as the incoming chief of staff if she makes it. Because these exploding cigars that are blowing up in her face and Donald Trump's face, they're a lot her problem and the presidential transition team's problem. But the problem is they're so conflicted financially and economically and ethically. The transition team, the one guy got the commerce secretary nod. The other one got the Linda McMahon coming out of World Wrestling Federation, which has done more to pollute the minds of children than anything I can think of and undermine their values and morals. She's going to be the head of our nation's children as the Department of Education. They're so suffused with Musk, with all their conflicts, they can't get out of their own way. Mm-hmm. And so they're not making proper judgment, proper decisions about other people's ethical, moral, criminal conduct because they're seeing it through, their own screen that's completely dirty. Get an adult in there. I thought that's what Susie Wiles' job was. But she was supposed to be the one. So then after Hegseth blew up, what do you mean you have the police report from 2017 when the alleged rape happened? Oh, I have that. How did you not tell the transition team that you had the report? Why did we have to read it in the paper? And that seemed to be the last straw, right? So we're going to talk about why they're now running to the FBI, the Joe Biden deep state FBI, to bail them out, and what is going on with the thought of and why DeSantis? And why does everybody now rallying around this DeSantis pick? And then a bad day. There's no other way to put it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. A bad day at oral argument at the United States Supreme Court for liberal-minded people and people who are in the transgender community or LGBTQ plus community or support those that are. A bad day at oral argument. We'll touch on all that, but we're going to take one more break from our sponsors. Before we do, go on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Help us build that pro-democracy channel in collaboration with the Meidas Touch Network. Boom. Hit the blue free subscribe button. There's stuff there. I can't even describe for you the stuff that's there. I get up every morning. I crank and cook like four or five videos. The other contributors come on there as well. We got some great live shows. Can't be beat. Legal AF. There's a reason we built it before the election. Not to get Kamala elected. That would have been a nice byproduct. But to be here as a community, joining hands, because get ready, folks. This is the calm before the storm. I know it's hard to believe. It looks like you're in the storm. This is the calm before the storm of Donald Trump. And the tsunami that's going to hit is Donald Trump is going to, on a daily basis, put this country into constitutional crisis that's going to have to be resolved by federal courts up to the United States Supreme Court. Every day, he's going to challenge separation of powers, what a president can do, what a Congress should be doing, what a Senate should be doing, what executive powers he has for executive orders, what he can do by law, what he has to do through Congress every effing day, which means thousands of cases. And where else is a better place, Dina, than Legal AF to learn all about that. And we're there for it. We know our audience is too. And I really appreciate this almost 70,000 people that joined Legal AF since the night of the elections. Crazy number. It's all testament to the loyalty of this audience and support for our product. But let's now, speaking of support for product, let's go to our sponsors. The heart of holiday traditions is family. But what happens when you're gone? Protect your family's future and your peace of mind with Policy Genius. Policy Genius makes finding and buying life insurance simple, so your loved ones have a financial safety net they can use to cover debts and routine expenses, or even invest that money to earn interest over time. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. Since the arrival of our baby daughter this summer, we are more mindful than ever before about the need to protect her future and that of my wife's, should anything happen to me. With my goal that all future education and housing costs like mortgage payments are fully covered by insurance, this ensures that my family's future is well protected. Policy Genius is so much more insightful and provides useful data to let me pick the best life insurance policy tailor-made for me. With Policy Genius, you can compare quotes from America's top insurers side by side for free with no hidden fees. Their licensed support team helps you get what you need fast so you can get on with your life. They answer questions, handle paperwork, and advocate for you throughout the process. Life insurance is a form of financial planning, and Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. Even if you already have life insurance through work, it may not protect all your family's needs or follow you if you leave the job. Join thousands of happy Policy Genius customers who left 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. Secure your families tomorrow so you have peace of mind today. Head to policygenius.com/legalaf or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/legalaf. Let's be honest. What most people really want for the holidays is to see their favorite people more often. That's why this year, the best gift you can give, besides plane tickets, is an Aura digital picture frame. Named the #1 digital photo frame by Wirecutter, Aura frames are incredibly smart and easy to use, allowing you to upload unlimited photos and videos directly from your phone to the frame. Plus, you can order the frame online and preload it with photos and videos using the Aura app, so it's ready to go right out of the box. For my wife and I, Aura has been a lifesaver. We just welcomed our daughter into the world in June, and her grandmothers live in Europe and Atlanta. But we gave each a frame, and now we can instantly share all the adorable baby photos and videos with both of them. Grandma rivalry averted. Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames by using promo code LegalAF at checkout. That's AURAFrames.com. Promo code LegalAF. This deal is exclusive to listeners, so get yours now in time for the holidays. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, we're back. So you want to start with the why don't you start with the cabinet? Talk about Hegseth, where we're at every day, right? Talk about a death of 1,000 paper cuts every day. We get a New York Times report about an email, the New Yorker magazine about a series of women and financial impropriety. Drip, 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 drip. And now, finally, it looks like he may not even make it by the time this live is over. Why don't you catch everybody else up about Hegseth, DeSantis, and then I'll weigh in after.
Yeah. So if anybody hasn't read the New York Times email, they published an email from his mom. I would say go and read it. It's not an email that you would ever want published by a parent. Basically, she says that he's an abuser of women. And the reason why, I know there was so much discussion oh, the New York Times shouldn't have published it or whatever, but I think that's definitely journalistic fair game, specifically because of the arrest report, as you said, with the sexual assault allegation that, the woman went and had a police report, but they didn't end up prosecuting it. So the question of him around women was fair game. And then this email is specifically calling him out as an abuser. But that seemed to be maybe kind of okay in MAGA world because they don't seem to actually be that bothered about sexual harassment and assault around women. Let's face it, or even children. Matt Gaetz, I'm looking at you. But the thing that seemed to kind of maybe be what will bring him down was his Fox colleagues talking about how he shows up at work hungover frequently. And that seemed to be a step too far. I don't know if it's because it was actually Fox colleagues and MAGA world can only trust people on Fox, or the idea of maybe having somebody drunk in charge of our army was just a step too far. But like you said, he seems like he is going down. And it will be interesting about, I think that DeSantis' choice is interesting. And it does make sense that there's some sort of play with Laura Trump, because I thought Trump didn't like DeSantis very much. Now he's putting him in charge of the defense. I didn't realize that they had become friends again. I don't know what you think about that.
Popok. Oh, I can solve for that equation.
Okay, let's solve for it.
So DeSantis's 2 terms are up as governor, so he's got no place to go. I think he was eyeing the Senate seat for himself which is why he hasn't picked a replacement for Marco Rubio. It's been known for the last month that Trump World wants Lara Trump, who's fresh off the daughter-in-law, who's fresh off the Republican National Committee chairmanship, to get that seat. And on the other side, DeSantis is dying to get back in the good graces of MAGA so that he can be the mantle bearer. He can have the torch passed to him off this one-term Trump presidency in 2028. So this is a win-win-win-win-win. You know, he appoints Lara Trump to the open seat as his last gesture before he leaves as governor, goes into the Department of Defense, where he's better qualified than Hegseth. I mean, that's not saying much, but at least the guy was a governor and was in the military. And doesn't seem to have the record of sexual abuse, sexual predator behavior, public drunkenness, and financial mismanagement as alleged. You were nice to Hegseth. The New Yorker magazine article is that he was publicly drunk when he ran 2 veteran organizations as well, to the point where he got up on a strip club stage and started dancing. When he was drunk another time, he started to chant in a bar, "Kill all the Muslims, kill all the Muslims." And then he also committed financial misdealings where he put both organizations almost into bankruptcy. So if you're looking for somebody to run a, $850 billion Pentagon with 3 million service people, he may not be the guy for you. So you had that. Then you had what I called the canary, leave Dean on with me, the canary in the coal mine moment was Tim Parlatore, his lawyer. 2 weeks ago, Tim Parlatore was pointing his crooked little finger like Bill Clinton, saying, that woman, if that woman about that rape allegation comes forward, tries to testify against my client, we're going to sue her for having violated that non-disclosure agreement. She was the sexual predator. I'm like, are you effing kidding me? The New Yorker did an interview. They met the woman and her husband. Her husband was upstairs with the kids when she ended up in bed against her will, her allegations, with Hegseth. Okay, so all right. So that was 2 weeks ago. Oh, we're going to sue you. Okay. 2 days ago, when the latest New Yorker bombshell came out, and it wasn't just one email, it was this reporter doing her job and contacting dozens and dozens of whistleblowers at the various organizations and tying it all together. The Penelope Hegseth email was like, that was in the New York Times. That was like the least of it. It was mentioned in one line of a 20-page article. They got to Tim Parlatore, the lawyer for Hegseth. And this time he said, I will read you from a statement of denial from Mr. Hegseth's advisor. I'm like, look at him head for the exit. He's not vouching for his client anymore. He's not even saying, I. He's saying, let me read to you from a third party. I'm like, oh, this guy's cooked. This guy, if his own lawyer is not even defending him anymore, he's cooked. Then we read yesterday, they're going to push him out. And I mean, like, for those that aren't watching, they're going to push him out to do a Fox interview. At the same time, Megyn Kelly says out loud, she tries to defend him, but talk about damning faint praise. She's like, well, I don't think he committed the rape. How does she know that? But I wouldn't marry him with all of his out of wedlock babies. I'm like, this is helping him? How is this helping? How is this helping him? So all of that was like every hour. It was like another report. And then so he's cooked. So then the DeSantis is the easiest solution, because Trump, for him, it's like playing pool, and he's hitting the cue ball, and 3 balls end up in different pockets. He gets Lara Trump her Senate seat. He gets DeSantis in instead of being outside the tent. DeSantis needs it because he's going to lose his job soon as governor. He's got nowhere to go. And DeSantis is dying to run for president. Now he'll be a MAGA because he'll be the defense secretary. The loser in all this, 3 words, J.D. Vance. That cabinet pick is terrible for J.D. Vance, who wanted that lane, that open lane all to himself to inherit the mantle of Donald Trump and be the MAGA torchbearer. And now he's got, if this happens, which I'm pretty sure it's going to, it'll be DeSantis breathing down his neck and saying, well, I was the head of the Pentagon. I was the head of the Department of Defense. I was a governor. I was this. I was that. And J.D. Vance is like, I wrote a book.
Mhm.
So not good for JD Vance.
No, and he's such a bad candidate. They probably realize that. And I'm sure his Thanksgiving post where he's dressed up in an apron with Trump did not help. I don't know if I'm sure Trump is trying to distance himself as much as possible with Vance. I just never thought Trump could get over the fact that DeSantis tried to beat him in the primary. I didn't think that Trump had that in him. Also, Susan Wiles evidently was.
But Marco Rubio. How about Marco Rubio? Marco Rubio was little Marco. Little Marco.
Right? That was like
but
8 years
Trump is transparently about Trump, and he wants that seat for Lara Trump, and he needed to dangle a pork chop in front of DeSantis, and it had to be pretty big to get it. This is guaranteed. It's otherwise it was by threat. Like, you better make Lara Trump, and he's been holding out, waiting for an offer. You could see, because we were all like, how come he hasn't nominated anybody or appointed anybody because he's been holding out for himself for trade bait. I thought he was going to take the Senate seat. If he really wanted to F Donald Trump, the middle finger, he'd say, I'm not doing any of this. I'm going to take the Senate seat and I'm going to run for Senate. Which governors have run for Senate before, sometimes successfully. Scott among them. Rick Scott went from the governor's mansion in Tallahassee to the Senate seat, and there's an open Senate seat, so he could wait for that. So this is a long play for DeSantis to be like, rather than senator, let me be Department of Defense, and then I have the inside track for president. It's evil genius if this is what eventually happens. But now we can get off of Hegseth, because again, congratulations to the Meidas Touch audience and to legal AFers, because our trained focus and attention among many other media outlets helped bring down Hegseth the way we brought down Gates. My prediction, half of Donald Trump's cabinet is not going to make it. Not going to make it. Before even the confirmation. And what did you think of why do you think Donald Trump did finally said uncle and said, all right, we'll have the FBI do the background checks? Why do you think that is? Is it that he's getting the word from Capitol Hill and the senators that they need that and they're not going to go into recess to help him out? Like, why do you think all of a sudden?
It's interesting because even Senator Thune was like, maybe a third party can do the background checks or whatever. And I think that this is how I think that even though they signed that agreement, they see it as optional. Trump is not felt bound by the law in any way, shape, or form. I think they think it's convenient. They probably don't know of a third party background check person that they want to use at this point. So they're willing maybe to have the FBI as an option. Here's the other thing too, is even if the FBI does a background check, I mean, in reality, is their background check going to be more expansive than reporters at this point? Probably not. I mean, we saw what happened with Justice Kavanaugh, right? It's a similar idea where they did a background check on him. It's pretty cursory, right? They're going to find out, basically, yes, they're supposed to submit financials and that kind of stuff. If somebody doesn't, is the FBI really going to go after them? The FBI is basically going to be answering to Trump because he's the one asking for the background check. And so he can direct the FBI as to how expansive or limited that is. And we saw that with Kavanaugh when the FBI got 4,500 tips into their FBI line. And Trump told America that the FBI was going to investigate all the claims, but told the FBI directly not to investigate it. And they can do that because the FBI isn't doing some sort of like independent investigation into a crime. They're basically being hired to gather the information that the president wants. So I think that they signed it more so that they could have the option to have the FBI look into them, but it's all directed by Trump, which means it's not some thorough FBI investigation that we are going to be surprised about. I think at the most, they'll probably get the same types of things that are already out there in the public. Trump, I don't think is going to push that hard to find out anything that he doesn't want to know about these people. What do you think?
I think they're using the FBI as cover because they've made major mistakes in not having done the background check. They thought wrongly that they could cram this down the Senate's throat. They had the threat of, he loves threats, tariff threats, 100% tariff on countries I never really understood what they're doing. 25% tariff on this, and then he's doing all of it now to like set up negotiations for later. So the threat was, I'm going to take the Senate out in the back and shoot it. And we're going to have a 10-day recess, and I'll appoint whoever I want. And the Senate was like, no, I don't think you're going to do that.
Right.
He was like, okay, well, let's go to plan B. Plan B is, can we shove some of these most outrageously, obscenely unqualified people down your throat? Especially the ones that have sexual predator and sexual conduct, misconduct allegations. And the Senate was like, no. Can we do it without background checks? No. So, they're running up and down to Capitol Hill. I don't know if it's Susie Wiles, who doesn't have Capitol Hill experience, actually, or J.D. Vance, who was only in the Senate for about 12 minutes. I don't know who they're using to take the temperature of the Senate and do vote counting. But they obviously don't think they have the votes for Hegseth. They didn't think they had the votes for Gates, even though they have a 4-seat or so lead in the Senate. If they lose 4, there's no way to get these people through. And the Senate is telling them, I'm sure, we're not going into recess. You're not. If you want to go hide people in acting and non-Senate confirmation positions, like Kash Patel, for instance. It's like, I always feel like this is like a joke. Like we're being punked by Donald Trump. He's got to know that Kash Patel is not going to survive a Senate confirmation process. He does. I think he's got a plan B behind each of these picks. Like he didn't just pick DeSantis overnight. Like, when Gates went down, like 8 minutes later, it was like Pam Bondi. Hegseth went down, DeSantis. It's like he has a second pick behind all of these picks. So this way he can look at back and go, I'm trying, guys. I'm giving you all your darlings, all your sweethearts. But, it's the media. It's Joe Biden. It's the FBI. I'm trying. But then he's got that plan B because he's picking them so quick. And you don't even hear him like complaining about it. Like, oh, my God. And I want my picks. I'm the president. I get to my picks. He's like, okay, Pam Bondi.
Yeah.
He's like buzzing in.
It's unusual for him.
Yeah, it's. So I think they said we're going to flood the zone, right? It's like a fire hose. We're going to take a fire hose of crazy. We're going to aim it at the Senate and the American people and the media, and we're just going to fire out as many crazy picks as we can, hoping it's like in a hockey game. It's like when you just fire pucks at the net, the goalie's got, and then a couple are going to get by. He's not going to make all the saves. So they're like, oh, if we get Tulsi Gabbard in, we get RFK Jr. in. Right. Yeah. So now we got to do what we've been doing here on Legal AF, the Meidas Network. We got to train our fire on Tulsi Gabbard, on RFK Jr., on Dr. Oz. I'm not even ready to give up on the Office of Management and Budget. I'm not ready to give that guy the checkbook for America on entitlements. So that's one of the things I love about our audience. They're here for it. We're arming them. We're talking about it over and over and over again. Because if you don't take to the streets like what we're watching in Russia and in Seoul, Korea, against the fascist dictator, you're never going to get anywhere. If you just meekly go off like sheep, that didn't work. And I read that there's this whole trolling going on of women and Democrats. And arguing that they're fatigued and they don't want to fight anymore and they're giving up and they're not going to do the street protests anymore. And that's all trolling just to gaslight you and suppress your public expression, because that's exactly what they want, to get away with their fascist tendencies. But why don't we turn to Dina? Can you stay?
I could say a few more. I mean, I don't know. I didn't hear back, so I might have to.
Give me 5 minutes.
Okay,
give me 5. And you ditch where you have to.
Okay.
We got a new show. Dina Doll and I, put Dina back for a minute. Dina Doll, there she is. Dina Doll and I do a new show on Legal AF, the YouTube channel at Legal AF MTN, which is called Unprecedented. Now you know why. It's every week we do a kind of, we peer into and look under the hood of what's going on at the United States Supreme Court, inside the court, outside the court, the oral arguments, the decisions, the leaks. Got new leaks that we'll talk about this coming week on Unprecedented. Like, it's a very leaky United States Supreme Court about the ethics code. The right wing, none of the right wing want the ethics code to have any teeth at all. They just want it to be window dressing for their unethical behavior. We'll talk about that. And we'll touch on it here, a bad day at oral argument for people that support transgender people and Americans in the Scarametti case. Camineta, which is the name of the Attorney General for Tennessee. We'll just tease it here, unfortunately. We had the first transgender lawyer to ever argue at the United States Supreme Court. He's a leading expert on transgender and LGBTQ plus rights. He's the co-head of the LGBTQ plus project as a lawyer for the ACLU. His last name is Strangio. It'll come to me in a minute. So he argued today. He's a parent of a 12-year-old about what it's like and what the Tennessee law that bans gender affirming healthcare, where an adolescent and their parents get together and say, we want puberty blockers. I want to be a woman. I want to be a man or a boy or a girl. And the Supreme Court, Roberts, Gorsuch, Alito, citing Swedish studies, tore the Solicitor General for Joe Biden a new one today. And you can just tell there are not enough votes to overturn the ban. That means the 23 states that ban gender affirming healthcare even for adults, let alone for children, are going to be sustained by this United States Supreme Court. I'll just leave you one last thing. I'll turn it over to you, Dina. In the same breath, this was the day that the LPGA golf tournament, the ladies' professional golf tournament, passed a rule, and they knew Skermetti was up there, that said that if you didn't take gender affirming healthcare before puberty, you're not going to be considered a woman.
Wow.
So it'd have to be a boy who takes but 23 states just banned that. So that boy, now girl, is not going to be able to be a future woman professional golfer if she didn't take gender affirming healthcare that's now been denied her by the United States Supreme Court, with John Roberts saying, well, who is it for us 9 people with no science background to make a decision? This should be left to the states and their legislators, meaning there's no constitutional right to protect the autonomy of your body. Of course, we always knew that with the Supreme Court. What you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it was so clear, basically, that the Biden administration was trying to say that this Tennessee law was a violation of the Equal Protection Clause because it was based on sex. Tennessee would allow a boy to have hormones that would, like take testosterone, let's say. There's a lot of reasons why boys take hormones to enhance, let's say, their maleness, right? And girls to do the same for their femaleness, let's say. And that law doesn't address that. It's specifically if you want to take hormones, if you're the opposite sex and you want to affirm the gender of not the sex you were born with. So specifically, this was a law that targeted females and males differently, which is a violation of the Equal Protection Clause. It's actually, I don't think, even really ambiguous in that way, because of the fact that the Tennessee law was so specific about that it was based on your sex, whether or not you could take these hormone blockers. But of course, this is where we're at in the Supreme Court. They're going to take their own religious views into account and not just constitutional precedent. I also thought it was really interesting that the Solicitor General used the West Virginia law as like a model. I was like, wow, like this is how little they were even asking for. The West Virginia law required 2 doctors to kind of sign off about how extreme, let's say, that child was suffering. Because as we know, a lot of children who are looking for this gender affirming care are, at risk of killing themselves. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. This isn't a decision that the child or their family is taking lightly. They're trying to save their life. That's how uncomfortable they feel in the body they were born. And in West Virginia, which you wouldn't, it's not a blue state, folks, allows for these puberty blockers. But okay, they first have to seek out 2 medical opinions. They first have to make sure that the severity of it. They have some constraints on it. But here in Tennessee, the law specifically denies it because they want to celebrate the sex that they were born with. And so I just think the fact that the Supreme Court was willing to stand behind this Tennessee law. Like you said, we'll discuss it more on Friday, but a clear abdication, I think, of what the Equal Protection Clause actually means.
Yeah, we'll get into it in more detail. We got a lot of things to talk about. It unprecedented. We're going to do it on, I think we're going to drop it on Friday on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Dina, thanks for being with us today with Karen Friedman and Nifalo out. There's various ways, of course, to support this show, this network, this channel. Meidas Touch, free subscribe to their channel. We've got the Legal AF channel along with the Meidas Touch network, and help us build that to 500,000 by Jan 1. Very important. Keeps the lights on, keeps us rolling along. And then our sponsors, our pro-democracy sponsors, they know exactly what we're talking about. They're here for it. We're here for them. We just publicly, frankly, fired a sponsor of ours. We didn't like the position that they took during the election, and they're one of our major sponsors. And we were like, no, we're not doing that sponsor any longer. And so this group of sponsors, though, they know what we're all about. They know what our audience is all about, and we appreciate them being so supportive of us. And then we've got, if you want gear, we got gear. We got a Meidas Touch store that has Legal AF merchandise in it as well. And you can go there. We got the ClickUp store.meidastouch.com for exclusive Legal AF gear. And then we got Patreon for exclusive content. You can't get anywhere else. Ben, Mycelis, and me are over there on patreon.com/legalaf. And that's what we're doing. And we really appreciate everybody here from the bottom of our hearts for being so supportive. We will get through this together. It is not a time for abandonment or resignation. It is a time, as we have seen, to lean forward, not back, to have sharper elbows, and to retool, get off the mat, right? That's what they say about life. It's not about hitting the mat like in boxing. Everybody's going to hit the mat. It's how you get up and what you do next. That's important. And we're doing it all here together. We're organizing it here together. Meidas Touch Network, of course, has already done such amazing things. It just, in ad week, I think we just outviewed Joe Rogan, Fox, MSNBC, and CNN, making us the number 2 YouTube network out there, which is quite amazing. Salty, our producer, sent around some stats today about the Legal AF podcast. And it's, I think we doubled our audience in a year. Doubled our listening audience in a year, which is almost unheard of. We're regularly, because of you guys and our audience, we're regularly in the top 50 for news and top 10 for news analysis worldwide. And we're like a garage band. We like literally started it. Ben and I started this in a closet during COVID. That's where I was relegated to, and Ben too. So we really appreciate everybody here. So until our next Legal AF, which will be this Saturday. And again, there's a new show also, Popok Live. Yep, Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Me, a microphone, and the intersection of law and politics. Popok Live on Tuesday nights, Wednesdays, Saturdays, Legal AF, and then we got the Legal AF YouTube channel. So until our next contribution on all things Legal AF, this is Michael Popok for Dina Doll signing off.